Hello, everyone. How are we doing? Hey to everybody that is joining us today. All right, so we're live. I'm super excited to have Hasmi with us here today, and I'm going to let her tell her story. So quickly, if for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Maribel. I am the creator of Our Wealth Matters, where I share content in English and in Spanish for our immigrant community here in the United States. And so I love bringing on speakers that are also part of our community. And that's how I found Hasmin. And I was just like super excited to see her. So I was like, Hasmin, I got into her DMs and I was like, Hasmin, I love your story. I need to talk to you. And like, can you set up a virtual cafecito with me? Here's the link. And she was like, okay. And so anyway, we meet up and that turned into this. So we're offering this free webinar today about how to make money regardless of your immigration status, because I know that that is something that is like super big in our community. And we have these myths about, if you don't have a social security number, you can't make money. And that's not true. And when I found out that wasn't true, I was like, what? So when Hasmin and I were like spitballing and she was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, we got to make this happen. So Hasmin, I'm going to pass it on to you. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Hey, Maribel and everyone joining. Thank you so much for inviting me. I was really excited actually when you reached out to me. I just recently started a new Instagram for my law firm specifically. And so when you reached out to me, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I would love to collaborate. How do we get more resources out there for folks for free? And especially in areas where getting information like this is really scarce and really difficult to obtain. Specifically here in New Mexico, we're very rural, so we have a large digital divide. I'll talk about all of that and how it affects folks across the country and the states that they're in. But first, I'll introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jazmin Irazoqui-Morales. I am in New Mexico, and I'm the first attorney with DACA to be admitted into the state bar. And so that came with a lot of challenges. And I know that a lot of my clients face the same challenges and can relate to the same issues that we talk about when, what does it mean to make money regardless of immigration status? Well, what if I don't have a social security number? Can I get the type of license that I need to start my business? And, those are a lot of things that Maribel and I have been talking about since she reached out to me. And then, of course, a really important counterpart to that is, okay, now I'm making money. How do I make sure that I protect myself and my family and generationally so that we ensure that folks are setting themselves up, if not for generational wealth, at least for economic security in the short term and the long term? So really excited to be here. If you have been following me for a long time, I've been involved in the immigrant rights movement for a really long time. I am affiliated with the New Mexico Dream Team and United We Dream. You may know my twin sister. She's at undocu-surgeon, and she's the first undocumented doctor in the state of New Mexico and the first surgeon in the country to have matched categorically into a surgery residency. So there's a lot of experience here, and I'm really excited to be able to share it and to have Maribel's expertise here as well. So thank you for inviting me.
Yes, like, are you kidding me? Like, motherfucking trailblazers. Like, that is what I call our community, because a lot of people, they go and they're like, from what I've seen, right? Financial institutions. And they're like, hey, they couldn't really answer whether I could invest or not because you need to be a resident. And then it's like, my always follow up question is like, resident in the like state? You mean like they have an address, or like legal resident? And then the company can't answer it. All that to say that like the reason that these companies can't answer those questions is because they don't have a large volume of our gente investing and banking and credit cards. So they don't even know how to answer. They're not trained in that. And so they are motherfucking trailblazers. And like, are you kidding me? Like, the first lawyer in New Mexico who's undocumented to get like her license, to be able to, well, okay, so I'm not too well versed in the nuance, but like, that you can actually like practice. And then your sister being one of the first as well, who's undocumented, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yes, it's just like, are you kidding me? Yes. So we are in the presence of awesomeness and greatness here, everybody. So let me know, for anyone who's joining us, let me know where you guys are joining us from. I definitely want to know. I always love knowing where people are joining us from, because like I love traveling. So I'm just like, ooh. So put it down in the comments. If you're joining us through Instagram Live or any other platform, feel free to come onto the StreamYard where we're actually here and we can see your comments. For Instagram Live, we're going to kind of have to be somewhere else to see your comments, and we may not get to them as quickly as if you're here on the actual webinar. So if you want to do that, go to the link in my bio for Our Wealth Matters and come and join us through there. Oh my gosh, I love this. Delia, she's joining us from California. I'm from California too. Oh my gosh. Okay. Jazmin, they're joining us from Albuquerque. Yes, love it. All right. So
And then there's some on the Instagram live joining from LA, from San Diego.
ooh, I see that. I see that. Oh, so we got a lot of California people. Yeah, I know you guys. My God, no, I'm kidding. All right. Shall we dive into it,
Let's
Hasmin?
do it. Let's do
it. Okay. Sorry, I forgot who's answering the first one.
No worries. So we prepared a little bit of what are the most common questions that Maribel gets through our Wealth Matters, as well as, the most common questions that we get through my law firm. And the number one, regardless of whether you're trying to do some financial planning or whether you're talking to an attorney when it comes to business or immigration status, is number one, do I need a social security number to make money? I think everyone asks this question, especially when you come from a mixed immigration status family, whether you're undocumented yourself or not. And I think we've done a pretty good job of sharing that information. And the answer.
Let me interject here.
Go for it.
Okay. Answer in the comments, you guys. Do you need a social security number to make money? Put it down in the chat. I want to see. Because we can think we did a great job as me, but
that's right.
We don't know. I'm just saying, right? So yes or no, do you need a social security number in order to make money? Oh, here we have Jazmin. She's active. She's on it. She's like, no. What about anybody else? Anybody else feeling brave? You guys good? Let's see who we got here. Nadia Garcia. She's like, no, you can use an ITIN. Exactly. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Bianet, thank you for engaging. Yep, she said no. All right, exactly. So no. And if y'all been seeing our posts these past few weeks, you know that that's a no. Ooh, Delia then says, it depends.
Oh my gosh, Delia, are you a lawyer?
Has been your favorite phrase right there. Your favorite phrase. Yup. And Natty over in Instagram, she's saying yes and no. So yeah, love it. Love the engagement. All right. So the answer, if you saw our post, is no. All right, let's move on to the next question. Do I need a work permit in order to make money? Answer that in the comments. Yes or no. Do I need a work permit to make money? I really need to learn how to make polls up in here. All right. In the meantime, Jazmin said undocu hustle. Yeah, for sure. And one of the big things that we are going to be touching on is going to be independent contracting. So I'm loving that. Yes. All right. So the answer to do I need a work permit to make money is, yup, Bianet got it right. She said no. Daniela as well. She's saying no up in here. Yup. All right. So exactly. You don't need a work permit to make money. And we're going to be discussing a little bit more about that later. All right. Question number 3. Jazmin, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Okay. This one's the one that I get asked a lot. Do I need a green card to make money? More often, people call it a green card, legal permanent residency, a specific immigration status in the United States. Do I need a green card to make money?
All right. What do you guys think down in the comments? Do I need a green card to make money?
I love the answers that we're getting on the IG Live, by the way.
Yes. Feel free to call them out as well. So yeah, because I'm over here con dos.
No worries. I'll take care of the IG Live. So Kimberly
awesome.
says, not always. Lioness Locke says no. Start a business with your ITIN. And then we have Dr. Navarro, PhD, saying not necessarily. So all these answers are great, y'all. Keep them coming.
Yes, we love the engagement. We love to see you guys up in here. So let's see. Bianet said, and no. All right. I love it. And Jazmin also said no. And Daniela up in here also saying no. All right. Exactly. You don't need a green card to make money. What? All right. Let's move on to how. Okay. So how do I make money if I don't have a social security number, though? The quick and dirty answer is ITIN. And I get it. Everyone be telling you can't motherfucking work with an ITIN. Oh, shoot. Is that gonna... Sorry. Sometimes I just words come out. So what the heck, an ITIN, that's what's going to allow you to make money in the United States and build wealth, whether you're here for the long term or the short term. We're going to discuss that. So Jazmin, what is an ITIN?
Yes, thank you, Maribel, for asking that. I know that folks have been throwing the term out there. An ITIN is a 9-digit number that's issued by the Internal Revenue Service, which most people know of it as the IRS. And so the nuance of why people say that you cannot, quote unquote, work with it, it's really complex when it comes to the intersection of federal immigration law and federal employment law. But here's the thing. A social security number by itself does not give you the authority to work either. What it does do is give you the ability to report and pay taxes very similarly to what the ITIN does. So again, the ITIN 9-digit tax number that's provided to you by the IRS, which is analogous somewhat to the Social Security number, which is also a 9-digit identification number provided to you by the Social Security Administration. And I'll leave it there. We can talk about the nuances more on, and folks can ask questions if you're not very familiar with it.
Yes. Do you also want to discuss how to go about getting it?
Yeah, absolutely. If that's something that we want to talk about here, how do you get it? Right? Like people are like, okay, well, if I can't work with if I don't need a social security number to work and I can do it with an ITIN, great. That's awesome information. We're halfway there. How do I get it? So because it's issued by the IRS, you need a form to submit to the IRS to obtain it. That's the IRS form W7, and you need to prove that you need the ITIN. So generally the need to report and pay taxes to the IRS. So generally what we see a lot of folks doing is that they'll go to a tax preparer, get their taxes prepared, and with that application, submit the form W7 to request an ITIN.
Yep. And so for our community here, sometimes a lot of that situation is based on we made income and we need to report that in our taxes. And so the reason why we need this ITIN is to be able to report our taxes and pay up our tax liability to the IRS. So if you guys have questions, I love it. Keep bringing them, but just know that we're going to answer the questions at the end of the webinar. All right. So, but keep them coming. We'll try to tag as many of them as possible so that we can see them afterwards.
And then
Okay.
we do have a question, Maribel. I don't know if you wanted to touch on it now. It's from Daniela. It says, if I had a work permit before and I got a social security number, but now I'm undocumented, can I use that SSN like an ITIN? Great question. I'm happy to take it if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So Daniela, I love this question because in the uncertainty of DACA, it's so important for folks, right? You get, whether it's DACA or any other kind of immigration status, you got a social security at some point and they had a work permit along with it. That social security number, similar to the ITIN, is yours for life. It's even better than having an ITIN because the social security number issued to you by the SSA will never be taken away from you. It is yours. You can continue to use it even though you no longer have a work permit. So your work permit went away, that's okay. That social security number, you can use it to report taxes. You can use it to be an independent contractor. You can use it to open up your own business and get an employer identification number. Brownie points for those of you who know what that is. And so the simple answer is yes, you can use that SSN like an ITIN. And the added bonus is that it's that 9-digit number that's assigned to you for life.
Awesome. I love that question. Thank you. Thank you so much, Daniela, for asking. All right. So let's move on to it. We were going to move on to ways to make money using an ITIN. All right. So let's get to it. So there's two forms of this, right? You can make money passively, so passive income, or active income. Let's dive into passive is more just like, you kind of sit back. You're not like having to physically work for it all the time. That's why it's called passive. And active, you have to like wake up, you got to go to work, you got to do this, you got to do that. And that's why it's called more active. So passive income could be like interest from a high yield savings account. And for anybody who doesn't know what a high yield savings account is, it's just like your regular savings account, like that you have at Bank of America or Chase or Wells Fargo. But these high yield savings accounts give you a higher interest rate. So for example, those banks that I just mentioned, they give you like 0.01%. So out of, I want to say like $1,000. Sorry, I can't math on the fly. I was like, they give you like 1 cent at the end of the year versus high yield savings accounts that right now are at like, they're not that low. So right now they're at 5%, but obviously if you're seeing this if you're seeing this replay later, know that these APYs, these percentages and interests are going to change. So for example, I know the one that I have the highest one right now is at 5.25%. So I'm just doing some quick math. For every $1,000, that's $5.25. Sorry, for every $100. For every $1,000, that's $52.05. Okay. And you're like, I mean, $50. Okay. But if we do like $1,000 times the 0.01% that the other banks are giving you, it's 10 cents. Would you rather have $50 or 10 cents? I mean, personally, I'm just saying, personally, y'all are free to, your own opinion, but I would rather have the $50. I don't know. What about you guys? Tell me in the comments what you guys would rather have, 50 something dollars for $1,000 or 10 cents. And if you say 10 cents, give me your $1,000. I will pay you 10 cents at the end of the year. All right. But yeah, let me know. And then, so that's what high yield savings accounts are. That is something that you can open with an ITIN. La cosa es nomás saber then, like, what are these bank institutions that are allowing ITINs to come into their ecosystem? Because not everybody does. So some of the things that you can look into are credit unions. And there are some banks, I don't know if we want to mention them here because they're going to change throughout time, to be honest, but just know that they are out there. And I have some of this information up on my profile as well. And, feel free to put it in the comments if you guys do want to hear the bank names, knowing, again, disclaimer that like these banks are subject to change, right, as time goes on. Yeah, Yasmin saying she'd rather have the $50. I'm right there with you, girl. I'm right there with you.
Same. And the other thing I will say is that, as folks are joining the live, as you are connecting with the social media that Maribel has or my social media, I'm a big believer in using your community and using your resources. Wherever you are, if you're in California, if you're in New Mexico, if you're in Boston or you're in DC, chances are there are community members there that are asking themselves the same question, and some of them may already have the answer. So start connecting with other folks. Use each other as a reference, because a bank in New Mexico may offer high yield savings accounts for ITIN holders, but it might not be the case in, I don't know, Boston, because they don't have the same type of immigration community, because most of them there may have a work permit versus the folks down here in New Mexico being more mixed immigration status. So talk to each other, ask what banks, which local credit unions, which large multinational entities are the ones that are not only providing you access to these financial benefits like high yield savings accounts, checking accounts, banking accounts, and credit cards, but also which of these banks are the ones that are the most receptive to our community. Do they talk to us in our language? When we go through the door, do they treat us with dignity? That's a big piece of this that I think a lot of folks are like, oh, well, just go to the bank and talk to them. You don't understand. Have you ever been undocumented? Have you walked into the bank and said, hey, I don't have a social security number, but I want to know if I can open a bank account? Because I have. And the look that people give you, like you're someone out of this world, like, well, if you don't have a social security number, how are you in the country? Is not the question that we want to answer when we go into the bank after we worked up the nerve to go in there at all. So use each other as a resource, talk to folks. I think the more that we start talking about this, the better that our community will be off, because we are sharing those resources with each other.
Yes, and I love that you brought that topic up, because especially when somebody is a brand new undocumented person, you don't know who you can talk to and who you can't. And so going to any person that looks like they're in a place of power, where they are a bank institution or, the law enforcement in your community, like you don't know who you're allowed to talk to. And every state and place differs. So it's not like you can apply the blanket rule, like, oh, in my state, I can talk to the law enforcement even if I'm undocumented. That shit doesn't fly like in every state. So yes, I love that. Talk to your community, make sure, to get the 411 from them. And so we do have a comment here from Rosario, and she says, yes, I would love to know the banks, please. All right. We didn't give the disclaimer at the beginning, so we should do that now.
we should. And then
quick disclaimer, guys. I mean, I'm gonna let you do it. You're the lawyer.
No, you. While we will be providing resources here, please do not take any of this as financial advice or as legal advice. We highly, highly encourage you to schedule consultations later on with a local financial advisor or a financial advisor who you know will work with immigrant communities. If you have any legal questions related to federal law, feel free to do a consultation with my office. All the information is there. But I also refer to nonprofits. I'm a big believer that if you don't have to pay for a service because it's not within your means, I'll refer you to a local nonprofit, and I'll even help you find nonprofits in your state.
Yes, thank you, thank you. So yeah, we're not certified financial planners. Wait, I'm not. I forgot if you are.
I don't use my
No,
finance.
but you don't use it. It's like, even if she is not your certified financial planner. So take everything that we're going to say here with a grain of salt. Now let's get back to Rosario's question. She was like, okay, yes, please. I would love to know the banks. All right. So some of the banks, and I'm going to just mention only the ones that are like ITIN friendly. So the one that I had mentioned, 5.25, they're only accepting social security numbers. And so, you know, that's the nuance. So let me go to, I use another one that's also called Varo. They're giving 5%. So, I mean, that's still good because let me do the math here, 5% times 1,000, that's $50 still. I mean, you're only losing like a couple, you know, like $3 a year. So I would say that one's still really good. Varo, it does accept ITINs. They are an online bank. So just know you still need another like brick and mortar bank if you want to, you know, take your money out of the ATM. So full disclosure, I do still have my Bank of America like account that I opened up when I was like así chiquitita with my mommy, who was like, hey, we need to get you a bank account. And I was like, all right. So that's what I use because it's like right around the corner from my house. So I'll get I'll get money deposited to my Varo account. It's making interest there. If I do need it, or to my high yield savings accounts, if I do need it, I bring it over to my Bank of America, go to the ATM around my house, and then do that. So, you know, some of these banks, they haven't necessarily always helped our community the best, you know, like because they're giving low interest, but at the same time they serve their purpose. And especially for our community, just make sure that it's easy for you to use your system, right? For me, it's easy to go around the corner and like go to that Bank of America ATM, even if it hasn't historically been the best serving for our community. Like, I totally get it, totally understand if you don't want to do that, but yes. Varo, let me type it out.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that was the right one. And the other thing,
so
there's a comment on Instagram Live, Maribel, from Lucilda Campos. It says,
tell me.
You may also get referral bonuses and promotions if you're referring people or being referred. So question, does Varo do the same? Can you send referrals, links? Does that increase your percentage? For example, my high yield savings account does. So I send that left and right to friends and family.
Yeah, so I don't get a higher percentage if I refer anybody. And I think I do have like a referral link, but yeah, sometimes I forget because I'm like, I don't have a big enough value to remember. And it's not going to serve, like for me, it's like I'm more here about serving the community. And then, so I'm just like, if it does, ya se me olvidó, just fucking go get the account. Don't wait for me.
Right. No, that makes sense. I will say that I know that there are other high yield savings accounts that if you have one, it'll increase your percentage by 1 or 2 points, sometimes
And
3 points.
ITINs?
I'm sorry?
And they accept ITINs?
It really depends on the company. Again, it's the financial regulations.
Only because we're mentioning
the one that I use, I'm not sure because I haven't had any folks where ITIN holders go use it, but I do know that they work with documented folks because I do have those individuals who are using them.
Yeah,
and
mention it.
That's a great resource amongst families, right? Because I know one of the ways that, you know, that's kind of analogous to saving that our community does son tandas. Well, instead of doing the tanda, what if like all of you get together and send each other the referral link, and now all of you, instead of having a 5% interest rate for the next 3 months, you have an 8 or 9% interest rate. That's great. And the money's just accruing while it's sitting there.
Yeah, and to be fully honest, my family never did that. So when I heard about that concept, I was like, how does that concept work? And then mom was like, well, you know, sometimes it doesn't work because somebody could just leave before it's their time to pay. And I was like, again, how is that benefiting us? Like, and then I found out about high yield savings accounts and I was like, I mean, there, you know, you're going to get the money back. So again, I don't know the full, like how that works. But for me, right now, I'm just like, it's okay. I will go to a high yield savings like account. We're good. All right. Well, did you want to mention those banks only because we were mentioning resources with a quick disclaimer that it is for documented folks?
Yeah, the bank that I was talking about is Marcus. They're also online and they're associated with Chase. And one thing I do want to say, right, we're not endorsing any of these big multinational entities. We understand that a lot of them have issues. There have been multiple lawsuits across the country for these banks following discriminatory practices. If you've been following social media, some of these banks have been making money disappear. So be careful, always keep your statements, ensure that there's a way that you can track that in the end. And I'm not saying that to create fear, but the reality is there, right? Just like in a tanda, someone could leave and that money's gone. You also have to be careful with the banks and ensure that they're FDIC insured and that you're also protecting yourself in the event that you have to go after them for your money.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Okay. So, ways to make money with an ITIN. We've gone through the first one, that is high yield savings accounts. Again, it's really quickly, it's real quick to apply. I remember having one of my followers message me, and she was like, hey, I've been seeing that you've been putting up content about high yield savings accounts. I just went to Varo and it was so easy. I was surprised because usually you got to jump through like shit ton of hoops to get that account. She was like, I applied and now I have it. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh. Okay, so way number one, you can get it from a high yield savings account. Way number two is you can actually invest in the stock market. And this has so many motherfucking benefits. Okay, first of all, you can save on taxes. Why? Because those tax brackets, so like if you make W-2 income from a 9 to 5, your maximum tax bracket is 37. Okay, 37, which is super high. That's for like people that earn a shit ton of money. But if you make money off of investments, your highest tax bracket right now is, I believe it's 20%. They're thinking about passing legislation to go even higher, but these are for people that earn more than $500,000 off of their investments. Okay, I don't know about y'all, but I'm not even quite there yet. So like literally would not fucking affect me. So, but the point is you can save on taxes because would you, like, just looking at the highest tax brackets, would you rather be paying 37% off of a 9 to 5 or 20% off of like capital gains, which comes from when you sell an investment for a profit? Tell me down in the comments because like I really want to know. I don't know about y'all, but I'm trying to save on taxes. That is one of the ways that we can save on taxes. The other way is that if you put your money into a retirement account like a 401k or an IRA, and an IRA you can also have with an ITIN. 401k, if you have your own business, you can have something called a solo 401k. So like even whether you're undocumented or not, you are not barred from having these types of accounts. So when you put money into these retirement accounts, you either get a tax break in this year or in the future, depending on what kind of account you get. But the point is you're saving taxes somewhere. Unlike if you put it in a regular brokerage account, which is like you get taxed when you get in your W-2, you get taxed when you get dividends, you get taxed when you sell it for a profit. The retirement accounts, they're called tax advantage because you either don't get it taxed in the W-2 or you don't get, or the dividends, or like you don't get it at tax at the end when you sell your investments. So we're getting a little into the weeds, so let me just back up there. The point is we're going to save on taxes, and you also get to plan for your retirement using those 401ks and that IRA. You can also save on taxes for those dividends that you get, which just means like you bought a stock and it's paid, that company has money and it decides to give it out to its stockholders. So if those stocks are held in one of those retirement accounts, sometimes those dividends don't get taxed either because you already paid the tax up front. And you can also make money off of how I mentioned the positive market change. So if you bought it for $3 and you sell it for $5, you just made $2 on that investment. Investing also carries risks. So just like invest based on your risk tolerance. Like how much risk are you trying to take on? Some people are like, I don't want any risk. Maybe bonds are for you. And some people are like, I'm done with the risk. Like, come on. And I'm like, hey, that's me. I learned about investing and I was like, I went full on. And I was like, we're going to take the risk though. Like, I'm willing to take any like shit that comes out of there. But there's also active income. So I'm going to pass this over to Jazmin to discuss a little bit more about how we can make active income. This is like working this is equivalent to like working a 9 to 5 job, but with your ITIN if you're fully undocumented.
Thank you, Maribel. And yeah, so that's the active income that I think a lot of folks often want to talk about, but we don't want to miss the passive income piece. It wasn't until I was a practicing lawyer that people started talking to me about investing in stock, high yield savings accounts, about, the financial markets. I was in finance school for corporate finance, but no one was like, you yourself should invest in stocks. So please don't overlook that. That's something that you definitely want to start looking at, and the tax advantages of it, even if you're not thinking about retirement right now. And just to reiterate, even if you're undocumented, you can benefit from those 401ks and those Roth IRAs. If you don't know what those are, go do a consultation. Oftentimes your banks will give you a consultation for free. Please let us know if your bank knows how to work with people who have ITIN holders. Put them in the comments of all of these, because the resources that you're sharing could change someone's life in another state. So please share that. Now, active income. Most people talk about like working and jobs, and I think that's the traditional way of looking at something. And from a legal perspective, we're looking at that legal relationship between an employer and an employee. So essentially, the company is your boss and you're the worker. That's what a lot of people think about for active income. You put in your own sweat, equity, and labor to get that money. Well, similarly, you can do that as, someone mentioned earlier in one of our chats, was independent contracting. And independent contracting is a form of what you'll hear other nonprofits and other organizations talk about this as quote unquote entrepreneurship. And I just want to make sure I lay that out specifically, right? Because people talk about be a business owner, be an entrepreneur, and they want to make it so complicated that I think people give up, because they're like, oh my gosh, there's so many things to get done that I don't know if that's for me. I just want to go to work, do my work, and get paid for it. You can do that as an independent contractor. And just know it's a form of entrepreneurship. It's a form of business ownership, but smaller scale with less liability. So as an independent contractor, other folks were already mentioning it in the chat, was, use the ITIN to be an independent contractor. Facts. So step 1, get your ITIN. If you don't have one, get that through the IRS, file your Form W-7 with a corresponding tax return. It might take anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks to get in the mail. You get your ITIN and that green letter, and then that you can use as the 9-digit number that you provide when you start contracting with other folks, whether it's an individual, whether it's other companies. Generally, when you go to work for someone else, they'll provide you what's called an IRS Form W-4. The W-4 tells them how many taxes to take out of your check. Well, similarly, when you're doing contracting, the company will give you what's called an IRS Form W-9. The W-9 is where you give them your name associated with your 9-digit number. That could be your ITIN or it can be your EIN. We'll talk a little bit about this later. And they use that information to report the money that they pay you as an independent contractor to the IRS, to the state agency, the tax department in that state. And then you use that to do your taxes at the end of the year. And that's a very simplistic way of talking about it. And then, of course, you want to talk about invoicing the folks that you're talking about. There's nothing crazy about that. You can go to Walmart or the dollar store and get one of those like receipt books and invoice people in that way and give them receipts. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's as simple as saying, I don't know, when I was little, I used to go around the apartment complex where I lived, and I would sell candy. I was a contractor for myself in that situation. I was what people called self-employed, right? You'll hear all these terms out there. At the end of the day is, how are we making money? How are we reporting them so that it benefits us to be able to do what most people think about when we're talking about the American dream? If I'm making money, goal 1, well, goal 2 might be to buy a house or to buy property or to buy a car. Well, how do I prove that I have the money to buy those? From the money that you're making as a contractor or as someone who's engaging in any kind of business or sales, right? You're going to do that through your tax returns. So you use those funds to file your tax returns, and then you use those tax returns to start building on that so that you can prove that you have the funds to buy property, to buy cars, to engage in probably what's considered a little bit riskier business management and getting business lines of credit, business credit cards, and all of that can be done with an ITIN. So are there questions about that? I know that I shared a lot of information. I'm about to condense it. As questions start to pop up, please put them in the comments. Number 1, get your ITIN, IRS Form W-7. Number 2, use that ITIN to fill out the Form W-9 that people that you contract with will give you to. And number 3, make sure that you file your tax returns at the end of that tax year with the form that they're going to give you. I think I forgot to mention this one. The form that they will give you is generally a 1099. Most often it's the 1099 miscellaneous. You use that to go file your taxes. Doesn't have to be any more difficult. The only added step that you have in between is that you got to invoice people. You got to give them receipts. That's it. It's that simple. And I think that, sometimes you have some folks that want to make it super complicated. Sometimes I get really upset at lawyers who do this, but it doesn't have to be. So questions about that, y'all? I'm not sure. I stopped looking at the IG live. So give me a second here while I scroll through.
Yep. And then, so let me put these up. So you said 1, get an ITIN. 2,
use the ITIN to complete form W-9, IRS form W-9. And then at the end, use your 1099 miscellaneous MISC to file your taxes. That's it. That's all you got to do. And then in there, invoice and give receipts. All right. So
I'm a slow ass typer. No, I didn't get this straight. I'm like, if you can put that, I'll put it up here for anybody who's following along. So step 1, get an ITIN. Step 2, use ITIN to complete IRS form W-9. And I'm a slow typer. And number 3 was?
Number 3, use your 1099 miscellaneous to file your tax return. Sorry, y'all. There are a lot of screens and I'm getting really confused over here. I see some questions about folks wanting to get the recording after this. If you weren't able to catch it from the beginning, go to Maribel's registration link, register anyways, and you'll get it afterwards.
Yeah. So fingers crossed we don't have any technical problems and that the link will, the recording will come out. And so anybody who registered for the webinar, and the link is in my bio, that's going over to a different platform, just register in there. And you can also once you do, you can, if you're still here right now live, you can actually join us live and you can have your comments also here spotlighted how we're having with everybody else. And at the end, we will send out the link to the replay, again, pending no technical problems. So if you guys have questions, now is the time to put it in the comments. Jazmin, we did have some questions from people who had already signed up. So feel free to take on the ones that you want from that.
Yeah, of course. And I think these questions are great to start getting into a lot of the tax strategies that you can take advantage of as an independent contractor. So one of the comments by Lucilda Campos says, save your receipts. Yes, ma'am. Save those receipts because you want to take the tax deductions and expenses that bring down your taxable income. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then I have a question from Kimberly R86. So W-9 is for ITIN? Absolutely not. The W-9 is something that folks, whether they have a social security number, an ITIN, or an EIN, which stands for an employer identification number, use to complete. It's the form that allows the company that you're contracting with to issue you an IRS form 1099 miscellaneous. Think of the 1099 as the counterpart to a W-2 when you're an employee. You're not an employee, right? But you still need to get a tax form that shows how much you got paid throughout the year. So you'll get that 1099. And how do they know what information, what's your name, what's your address, what's your taxpayer identification number? It's that W-9. So again, you use the ITIN to complete the W-9 because, as someone who's undocumented, well, how do I make money? How do I do that? The ITIN. But the W-9 is also completed by folks who have a social security number and by folks who have an EIN. And Nati Matias says, it's also important to record expenses, right? 100%. So the process that I just explained, get the ITIN, fill out the W-9, and get your 1099 at the end of the year to file taxes, I'm talking about a very simplistic sole proprietorship type of contracting. What does that mean? That means you're engaging in business. So as someone who's engaging in business, you're going to have expenses. And when you have expenses, what's different from being an employee, right? Like if I'm an employee and I'm in my office and I'm like, oh man, it's really hot in here. I need to buy a fan for my office. You buy that fan for your office, and if your company doesn't reimburse you, you just made an expense, but you can't take a deduction for it because it's not for a business. You're not engaging in business. That's different for folks who are independent contractors, who are operating as sole proprietors, rightfully so. If I buy a fan for my office because my office is super hot, business expense. That office that I'm renting, because that's where I meet with my clients, business expense. My client wants to go out to lunch to discuss a big contract, business expense. Do you know a good website for invoicing? There are many websites out there. If you know, great question, Elsa. Put it in the, she just put it in the chat.
Oh,
Those of you who are already contractors, please feel free to also share those. There are many free resources out there, but the number one that you will see out there advertised the most is what? QuickBooks. QuickBooks is the one that most people will see out there advertised, but there are others that are free, like Waze. There are others that are free through your bank account. When you go open a bank account for your contracting efforts, disclaimer, you don't need a separate business bank account. You should have one, even if it's a separate personal account, so you can keep them separately. But sometimes your bank will offer you these services for free just for having a bank account with them. One question, let's see. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to read all of them. Can you request a W-9 if you're applying for a job with a company? That's a really nuanced question. So let me take a step back and say this. And that question, it depends really on what the concept of applying for a job with a company means. If you are applying for a job that is listed as a job for an employee under that legal definition, then the answer is no. No, because they're not seeking to contract individuals. They are seeking to hire employees. However, one thing that I encourage people, right, is like, we're in a free market. We're in a capitalist market that allows you to choose to be an employee or allows you to choose to be a contractor. You know, when I was undocumented, I was contracting because I felt like that was the one way that I knew to make money. But now, as a U.S. citizen, you know, many, many, many years later, now as a U.S. citizen, I left the job market as an employee because I no longer wanted to be bound by someone else's rules and regulations and requirements of me as an employee. So now I am a business that contracts with other companies. And so the long way of saying that is no, but you can go to them and say, hey, I'm not in a position right now to be an employee because I have other business opportunities, but I am willing to execute this work for you as a contractor. Is that an opportunity that you're open to? And I've contracted with many law firms. I've contracted with universities. I've contracted with nursing agencies for that. And so I just encourage you that it's a broad way to take advantage of contracting. You know, oftentimes because of our families and the communities that we engage with often, we think about contractors as construction workers, as electricians, as plumbers. Yes, and you can also think about cosmetology, as nursing, as educators, as a lawyer, as doctors. I've helped many of my friends who are doctors open up their own private practice. Why? Because they did not want to be bound by working for a hospital and their rules on how they make money. Let's see. I have a question. I have a social security number issued back when I had a work permit, but the work permit has expired and is unrenewable. I also have an expired ITIN. Which number should I use to provide services and pay taxes as an independent contractor? Renew the ITIN and use that, or the SSN? That's a great question. I will reiterate by saying that I'm not providing legal advice, so I'll frame the answer as information. And here's the answer to that. Use your social security number. If you're joining us on the back end of this, I explained this earlier, but a social security number that was issued to you by the Social Security Administration will be yours forever. They will never issue it to someone else, and a social security number does not expire. So continue to use that social security number if you're engaging as a contractor, and use that to pay taxes. Now, many people are in this situation. You had an ITIN at some point. Well, back in 2015, there was federal law that was passed that ITIN started expiring because many folks would obtain them and then stop using them. They never used them, or eventually they got immigration status and stopped using them. So in 2015, they started expiring these ITINs. And so once they're expired, unless you renew them, you can't use them again. So if you already have a social security number, use that. Do not renew the ITIN, let it expire. However, here's a bonus piece of information for folks who may not know. There may be a benefit, and it may be advantageous to you to link your ITIN taxpayer history and any credit history that you may have with that ITIN to that social security number. You do that with the IRS, and you do that with the credit agencies. There are many ways to do this. You can reach out to me. You can even Google, how do I link my social security number to my ITIN? And there are free forms out there for folks. Please take advantage of that, because if you come talk to me, I will charge you for a consultation, or I will refer you to a nonprofit. And again, I'm a big believer. If you can do it for free and you don't need to have to pay someone for it, do it. Now, really quickly, I think a lot of people are like, oh, that's great that you're telling me that I should keep using my social security number, but why? I'm scared. I'm scared even though you're telling me this, and I have this ITIN laying around somewhere. Why should I keep using that social security number? Well, let's go back to the premise of it. Who is eligible for an ITIN? An ITIN is for folks who are not eligible for a social security number. So once you become eligible for a social security number and you have it, that social security number is yours regardless of whether or not the accompanying work permit or employer authorization document is current. So now that you have that social, use that social, right? Back to basics. Anyone who's not eligible for a social security number can obtain an ITIN. Once you have that social because you became eligible for it at some point in time, it is now yours forever.
I love that you said that, because and that made me remember the scenario where some people are like, oh, well, I have a social security number and an ITIN. And I'm like, okay, but you're supposed to have one. So like merge them. But yes, I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and that's really important, right? Like I remember, no manches, gente. When I was, so I was undocumented up until my first year of law practice, okay? And I would ask these questions to people, to tax preparers, to tax attorneys, to business attorneys, to the immigration attorney. And everyone was like, the question that you're asking me is so nuanced and it's so specific to the life experience that you have that we don't know the answer. So way back when I was like little undocumented Jazz, I was like, oh my gosh, ¿y ahora qué chingados voy a hacer? Like I have to get my law license, but you're telling me that maybe I don't have good moral character and I need a social security number, but at some point I had an ITIN and I've been paying taxes since I've been working, but the taxes are paid with an ITIN and I need to prove to the state bar that I've been doing it, but now I have this social that I'm giving them for my background check. ¿Cómo se hace? There's a way to link all of this. I tell all my clients, there's a solution for everything. The only thing that I can't fix is a problem that you don't tell me. So again, another plug for here. If you have really specific questions like that, highly advise you to go to an attorney that understands these issues, because one thing that I always talk about until I'm blue in the face, you can have a business attorney, a tax attorney, an immigration attorney, and none of them will know one from the other. And so that's one of the things that I love, is that my specialty as a lawyer, since I started practicing 7 years ago, is that I know the intersection of employment law, immigration law, business law, tax law, and how to do it from a personal perspective, because I engage in business, my family engages in businesses. All the clients that I have ever had are either undocumented professionals that have started their own businesses, or mixed immigration status individuals that at one point were undocumented, then got DACA, then got their green card, then got citizenship, or at some point got a U visa, and so forth. So go to someone, of course, go to a lawyer, and also try to seek lawyers or advisors or even community members that can tell you like, oh, sí, fui con ellos y sí saben lo que están hablando. You know, make sure that you go with folks who are going to advise you correctly, because it's happened in my family. My twin sister and I were told that we weren't eligible for any immigration relief because we went to some attorney that didn't specialize in that, and we could have been eligible for special immigrant juvenile status. So we went undocumented for no reason. So two things: talk to a professional, talk to your community, and talk to someone who knows what they're talking about.
All right. I didn't want to interrupt you, but someone did ask how they could schedule a consultation with you, because again, you have such great and individual and niche knowledge, and you come from the community, so obviously you're gonna understand. And as you just mentioned, like you had family members go, I was like, damn, you went through the whole like rainbow of immigration statuses. That's where I'm like, you know, I service the immigrant community, but I'm the daughter of immigrants, right? I do acknowledge that I have that privilege of, I was born here, I have a social security number, but ain't no fucking buddy doing the like research and doing the work. So I'm like, you know what, until somebody else shows up, like I'm gonna be here and like spreading this information, because our comunidad needs to know how they can legally or how they, without skirting the law, how they can survive and financially like actually exist in the United States in ways that aren't going to get us in trouble, but still allow us to build our money.
Exactly. And here's the thing, right? Like, we want to partner with folks who are great allies. And Maribel, I consider you more than an ally because your parents are immigrants. But in addition to partnering with great allies, we want to partner with folks who want the best for our community. And so we may not be in a privileged position that someone has lived through all of those things and it's that person that we're going to consult with, because maybe that doesn't happen in your state yet. I'm working with other states across the country who are trying to pass laws for professional and occupational licensing regardless of status, because they don't have it in their state yet. And so what do? They reach out to the folks in other states who have already done it to consult for the folks in that state. So there are many ways to go about it. Luckily, business, tax, employment law, immigration law, all of that is federal law. So I can practice in any state related to that, unless it's a local state matter, then I refer you to an attorney there. But, I feel very fortunate that I can share that expertise with folks across the country. And I try to connect you with the community there, because if there's one thing that I know is that I wouldn't be here if it weren't for all the folks who helped me along the way. And that's why, having been part of the immigrant rights movement with organizations like the New Mexico Dream Team, which was previously New Mexico Dreamers in Action, who then became affiliated with United We Dream and many, many other organizations across the country and locally, is why I'm here. Because these questions that I was asking these lawyers, they didn't know. And it was the people in these organizations that are like, mira, yo no soy abogado ni nada, pero a mí me pasó y esto hice. And it was that I was like, oh my gosh, they knew how to even like go through these gray areas that now as a lawyer, I'm like, yeah, we've seen this before. And here's how we've addressed it. Now on the back end, we're doing advocacy to change the laws so more folks know about this.
Yes, fucking love it. It's like, I got you. Don't worry, I got you. And yeah, that's where, some of the stuff I'll also reach out to like some of my followers, right? Because I'm like, shoot, I haven't gone through certain like trying to get certain financial institutions into certain financial institutions with an ITIN. And so mostly what I do is read the fine print. But I'm like, I have followers who have, and like right now I have an awesome, great ass follower. She's like one of my first clients. And now she just updates me because she's gone from ITIN to DACA. And she just updates me like, hey, I got my Roth IRA with my ITIN. Oh my gosh, I got DACA. So I transferred everything over. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, fucking love seeing y'all's journeys. So I mean, if you guys are going through a journey, like feel free to message me. I just love hearing about all your guys' developments and like the new milestones that you're hitting. But I just realized that we have like a shit ton of questions over here that people had submitted. So is there any that you want to take on? Give us a really quick moment. All right, we answered some of these already.
There's a very specific question about how to complete the form W-9. And that depends. Are you filling out this form as a sole prop independent contractor, or are you filling it out as a single member LLC, or are you filling it out as an LLC that's taxed as an S corp? Are you a corporation? Are you a C corp? A co-op? Like, there are many legal entities that I haven't even touched on because I focus a lot on independent contracting as a sole proprietor. So let's tackle that first. If you're an independent contractor and you're filling out your form W-9, and here there's a question specific to number 3, I would put individual sole proprietor. It's the very first box. Check that. There's not legal advice, general information for educational purposes. And that's all you have to put. Why? Because you're not an LLC, you're not a C corp, you're not an S corp, you're not a co-op, you're not a partnership, you're a sole proprietor. Okay? It's that easy, y'all. Now, if you're a single member LLC, you're not going to check LLC. If you're a single member LLC operating by yourself, you're going to check other and then type in disregarded, or write in disregarded entity. Okay? And then you're going to put your EIN, where it asks for your taxpayer identification number, instead of your ITIN or instead of your social security number. And I hope that answers that question, because those are the most common ones that we get. Now, there's another one that says, ITIN allows solo contracting. When do LLCs come into play? Thank you for that question, because that's where I was heading. An ITIN allows, again, let's go back to the basics. An ITIN allows you to report and pay federal taxes. taxes. However, our immigrant community, as brilliant as that, and as awesome and as innovative as it is, has also started using the ITIN to engage in business, right? And we call it solo contracting. But you can also, what it means to engage in business, you can also do that as an LLC. You don't need a social security number generally. It depends on the state that you're in. Okay, so go talk to a lawyer and they'll advise you specific to your state registration. But generally, you don't need a social security number to register an LLC with your state Secretary of State. So you can use your ITIN if it asks for a social to do that. And then you use that ITIN to get what's called an employer identification number, or more commonly referred to as an EIN. Think of that EIN as like you know how like the ITIN is what we use to pay our taxes for individuals? Okay, well, think of the EIN as the social security number for your LLC. Now, you use that EIN to report the taxes for the LLC, but if you're a single member LLC, you're going to report that business income on your personal taxes through a Schedule C. So it's not as complicated as some people try to make it out to be. So again, you can be fully undocumented and be a sole proprietorship, sole prop independent contractor, or you can have that added step to register as a limited liability company or LLC and have that protection, your personal assets from your business assets, and still use your ITIN to get your EIN. Now, a lot of my clients are ITIN holders and we apply for the EIN. Unfortunately, ITIN holders do not have the same privilege that Social Security number holders do, where you can apply for the ITIN online and it's almost instantaneously. I kid you not. If I timed myself, I could probably do it in 7 minutes flat from beginning of the application to the end to get an EIN for my clients who have socials. For folks who have an ITIN, the website won't recognize it. So you either have to send it through snail mail, and that'll take 4 to 6 weeks to get in the mail. Oh, my little.
Oh, it's your little thingy.
Yeah.
Wait, quickly, because you did pause. For anybody who's over at the IG Live and you want to continue being on seeing the video, IG Live sometimes times out at an hour and we are at 58 minutes. So if you guys do want to continue being in the conversation, seeing us answer these questions, please come over to the actual webinar. You can go find the link to that in my bio for the Our Wealth Matters Instagram page. All right, continue.
Yeah. Yes, please, y'all. Very grateful to Maribel for making this available afterwards. I'm not tech savvy. I love talking about this, but I don't know how to record it and package it and send it to you all. So please, and sign up for her newsletter. The other thing I was going to say is, right, you can send it snail mail. We're talking again about the EIN application, or you can send it via fax. Here's the problem that I have encountered with a lot of my clients. Most of my clients can go to Kinko's or they can go to FedEx and they can fax something through there, but it's not a fax that they have available long term. And why is that a problem? When you fax your EIN application to the IRS, it is that fax where they will send back the EIN number. So that kind of becomes a problem for clients who don't have an attorney that's doing the filing for them, who has that access to that fax number, or a tax preparer who's helping them do it. Often they won't have one and they'll send it there. So unfortunately, a lot of the folks that I work with end up doing snail mail. There's nothing wrong with that. It'll just take a little longer, 4 to 6 weeks. You'll get the letter in the mail. Once you get that letter in the mail, you can go open your business bank account for the LLC. Here's the other thing that I do want to say about the LLC, right? Like, you'll have a lot of people talk about it and they'll be like, it's great. It has liability protection. It has survivorship. It has a lot of benefits, 100%. And also you have additional requirements now that you've added that step of formality of registering the business. Check with your state. For example, I know the state of California is one of the most expensive states to have an LLC because in addition to doing your filings, you have an annual report that you have to file and pay for. I can't remember, it's something like $800. And the deadline is, I believe, sometime in April. And then you have to file the report, you have to pay for it, and then you got to do all the other filings that you do with LLCs. Here in the state of New Mexico, super easy to have an LLC. You pay the Secretary of State $50 to do your filing. It's a free filing with the IRS, and it's a free filing with the Tax and Rev Department. And then you got to do your operating agreement and then the contracts that you're going to use to engage in business. It's not very complicated, and it's pretty easy to get free resources. However, just know that it might have a little bit higher of an admin process that you should be aware of, so that you don't damage that liability protection that folks often want to file for an LLC for, right? And that means you cannot use the LLC as an alter ego. You have to ensure that the expenses that you're using are true expenses to your business, right? Like, no me puedo llevar toda la familia a comer y decir, oh, este fue una
Business
comida de
expense.
negocio.
Yeah.
A menos que realmente fue de negocio, ¿sí? Puedes poner, you can put your family as the board of directors of your LLC, and that was your monthly board of directors lunch where you talk about business. That's a business expense, right? You can't just use the business credit card or the business bank account debit card to pay for your rent. Absolutely not. That's a legal term for that, and it's called commingling. That's the number one way for the court to say that's not a business, that's an alter ego. You don't get the benefit of that liability protection. Love to talk.
I was going to quickly mention, like, the whole point of setting up like an LLC is the liability protection, which means that if somebody comes sues your company, they no se pueden meter with your assets. So
Right.
let's say you have $200,000 in personal assets and you have a casita and everything. Your business is all of like what, maybe $5,000 worth, right? Somebody comes sues your business, but you've been commingling money. Now they don't just go after those $5,000 in your business. They go after your house and those $200,000 that you have in assets. And that's what we're trying to avoid when you set up an LLC. So it's super important. Do not commingle your money, because otherwise you're not going to have that protection.
100%. Thank you, Maribel. I think there's a question for you specific to
Yeah, I'll take this one on. Yeah, so let me see. So the question is, this is a question about a retirement account. I asked my bank about the retirement account, and they said they were not allowed to even talk about it with people who own an ITIN. My bank is Bank of America. Do you have any places where I can start my account? Yes. So again, disclaimer, anything that we're going to mention here, take it with a grain of salt. It's not financial advice. Choose what's best for you. So it depends, first of all, what retirement account you're talking about. So we're talking 401k, IRA, but either way, if we're talking about 401k, like a solo 401k, or an IRA, you can go to directly to brokerage accounts that offer like these types of accounts. So this would be like Fidelity Investments. They accept ITINs. This would be like Charles Schwab. They also accept ITINs. And TD Ameritrade, they also accept ITIN. So the way that I group the information over on my social media platforms is, in all my content, is anything that works for anybody with an ITIN should also work for a DACA recipient, and should definitely work for somebody who's first generation. So that's why I like finding companies that actually serve our ITIN community, because then I assume that the information can be spread around throughout the rest of the people in our community. So let me know if that answered your question, or if you have any further questions. Oops. Oh, Jazmin. Oh, so we have another question. Do you want to take that one on?
Oh, yeah. I love this question because, again, I feel like lawyers make things really complicated, and then that's not what we're about here. We want to share all the resources and not be gatekeepers. I have an LLC. I want to take advantage of this liability protection people keep talking about. Now, how do I pay myself if I have an LLC? And you, Jazmin, just told me not to use that bank account to pay for personal expenses, because then that's commingling and then I can get in trouble. Great question. Actually, the way to pay yourself is really, really simple. You, from your business account, again, the LLC, think of the LLC as a baby. Let me start there. The LLC is a baby that is separate from you. That baby is its own individual person that's going to have its own bank accounts. It's going to build its own credit. It's going to own its own assets. So because of that, through that business bank account, that's where you're going to get paid. You're going to sign your contracts as if you're the owner of the LLC. Make sure you do that. We'll talk about that. Ask me questions about that. And pay yourself with the LLC, right? Put the money in the LLC, start putting it in there. Now, the very simple process of paying myself. I'm doing all the work for the LLC. How do I pay myself? Gente, we don't have to complicate this. Send yourself from Zelle from your business account into your personal bank account what you are paying yourself from the work that you did for your company, Whether it's 1,000, 2,000, that's no longer commingling. And then use the money that you put in your personal bank account to pay your rent or your mortgage or your car, or, all those personal things. Which, by the way, you can use your car for your business as well. There's many ways of doing that. I love doing tax strategies for my clients on that. Or go talk to your CPA if you have one. If not, I have a great person that I recommend. She's in Florida and works with a lot of mixed immigration status businesses. And you can start doing it that way. The other way, it's a little bit more old school, is if you have a checkbook for your business bank account, write yourself a little check. In the little memo, you can put owner services, right? Because they're your services to the company, and then go and deposit that into your personal bank account. It's that simple. What you don't want to do is use your business banking debit card or your business credit card to pay for personal things out of your business bank account. That's it. That's all commingling is. You don't want to do that. But just sell yourself some money, write yourself a check, deposit into your personal account, and then use that to pay your personal expenses. And that's it. Yeah. I think that's really simple. I get asked all the time.
Yeah, I think the nuance comes in like, well, if I'm not allowed to like get a W-2 job, right? How is it that my company is hiring me or paying me? Because then isn't my company, breaking the law? And like, we're trying to do everything, by the book. So I think that's where a lot of people get confused. And I know when people come and ask me, I'm like, I don't know. So that's why I love having you on, Jazmin, because I'm just like, Jazmin deals with this all the time. So.
Yeah. And actually, Maribel, that's exactly it. You hit the nail on the head, right? People are like, well, how am I going to get in trouble if my company hired me? Absolutely not, y'all. Language in these situations is important. Your company did not hire you. You are operating your business. You are operating your LLC. And as the business owner operating the business, you are allowed to pay yourself for the services of operating that business. You are not an employee of the company. You are not a worker. I'm even very careful about using that language like, oh, you can hire contractors. No, let's get away from that if you can, right? If you can remind yourself, because when you're talking about this, and if you're ever in an audit, the language is, I contracted with this contractor if it's an individual person, or I contracted with this business if they're an LLC or a sole prop that's holding themselves out as a sole prop, right? We're talking about contracting. We're talking about operating our own businesses. We're not talking about hiring anyone, because hiring triggers now the legal relationship between an employer and an employee. And it also triggers the federal immigration and federal employment law that people are like, oh, well, I thought I needed a work permit. I thought I needed a social security number to make money. And you know what? I will die on this hill. People are like, it's illegal to work if you don't have a work permit or immigration status or a social security number. No, it's not unlawful to work, to provide services. What is unlawful, and again, the responsibility for this is on the employer. It is unlawful for an employer to hire an employee that doesn't have employment authorization documents and a social security number. That's what's unlawful. The responsibility is on that company, not on you, the worker. That's my hill. I'm going to die on it. I will say that as an attorney left and right. And I do many presentations and I contract with organizations to help them establish processes for this, because they rightfully don't want to get in trouble. But a lot of these companies also want to help undocumented immigrant communities, and they want to provide processes that protect them, the community, and that also protect the business. And there's a way to do both. You just need to find
love it. Like, anybody who asks me questions, I'd be like, go to Jazmin. Go to Jazmin for all the legal nuance things. So I love it. I love it. I love it. Let me see. There's another question. Let me know if that's too detailed.
Oh, let me see. Sorry. Okay, so the question is, would it be ideal to start as a sole proprietorship, and as I start making more money, then make an LLC? Specifically for California, I wouldn't need to make a business account, would I, as a sole proprietorship? Okay, super compound question, so let's break it down. First question is it ideal? Well, that really depends. Are you a high liability business? Because if you're a high liability business, construction, electricians, that kind of thing that has a propensity for high liability, bars, breweries, I have, like, my clients are all over the map, right? Those kinds of high liability businesses, doctor practices, law practices, actually in the state of California, you have specific restrictions on who can be an LLC. But if you're not one of those businesses, then you can be a sole proprietor because your liability isn't high. For example, consulting, digital marketing. What else is something that I would consider low liability and that the law would consider low liability? I think consulting are the big ones, digital marketing, content creation, all of those tend to be low liability. You can be a sole proprietorship, it's free. And I always tell people, when does a business start? The business starts when you start selling your services, your goods, or your mixed goods and services. And that's it. You're a sole proprietor. It gets a little bit complicated, and I've had clients like this. I've been operating for 18 years as a sole proprietor, and now my sole proprietorship has all these assets. How do I transfer it into an LLC? Oh, homie G, you really are going to need a lawyer to transfer all those assets for you. But if you're not there, then yeah, test it out. Okay. I used to teach financial courses for the immigrant community in Spanish, and I would always tell them, negocio que no deja, se deja. Porque si no, what are we doing here? Okay. What are we doing? So
just putting yourself in liability all over the board. And ni siquiera te está pagando.
Yeah, exactly. So test it. If it's a low liability type of business and you're doing consulting, test it out for 6 months, for a year. And if you're making money, then invest in making the LLC, right? Especially in a state like California where it's so expensive to register and to maintain an LLC. That would be my advice if you came to me as a client, because now, again, but if you're a construction worker, if you do cement, plumbing, anything like that, stucco on houses, electricians, I would advise you to do an LLC because that's a high liability business.
Yup. We did have, and I know we were talking about this really quickly, so we do have a question from IG, and I know we kind of addressed this, but I just wanted to make sure that we specify this. So is it true that a business could get in trouble if they hired a contractor knowing that the person is undocumented?
La pregunta del millón. That's a great question. Okay, so let's get back to what I was saying. Language is really important. We are not hiring contractors. Contractors are not part of our staff. We are engaging in business with contractors. Now, why does that change the analysis? I love this, y'all. It changes the analysis because you don't go around asking my law firm, hey, do you have immigration status? Right? No, what you want to know is, do I have my law license? Is my business appropriately registered? Does it have the correct malpractice insurance, general liability insurance, professional liability insurance to engage in the business that I'm doing? That's all you need to know to engage in business with me. Therefore, when you're contracting someone, do not, and I repeat this, do not, no pregunten, oye, ¿tú tienes estatus migratorio? Right? Don't ask them. Why? Because you are not required to ask. They are not your employee. So if you contract a contractor, you are not asking them for immigration status. Do not get into the practice of that. And here's the nuanced part on the back end, Maribel, that I think a lot of organizations are really wary about. And I think it goes back to the question that someone asked, right? If I'm applying for a job, can I ask for a W-9? No, because you cannot be a contractor solely. You cannot hire or contract with someone solely for the purpose of evading federal immigration and employment law. That's what's unlawful. And if you do that, right, if you say like, hey, we have this position, and then you say, oye, fulanita de tal, right, because it's a small community, we tend to know each other. Fulanita de tal me llamó, and they asked me if they can be a contractor for us instead because they don't have a social security number and they don't have a work permit. No, gente, if you do that, and then you contract them as a contractor, that's unlawful. But if you open up a position and it's open to someone as an employment opportunity, or it's open to someone as a contracting opportunity, and you get contract opportunity bids, and ultimately when you put that person on a contract, you don't ask about immigration status, that's not unlawful.
Yeah. It's the, ¿cómo se dice? The denial of, or when you can't get like charged with something because you didn't know. It's like, don't ask questions you don't need answers to. Say that again.
Plausible deniability.
Yes, plausible deniability. when you have a contractor, the whole point is that you don't need to ask for immigration status. So don't be asking questions you don't need answers to. Is
Right.
basically it. And then, plausible deniability reduces, what you're gonna get. Just reduces, how all your legal problems. So no más no pregunten. It's a contractor. Again, as Jazmin said, if you opened up an employment opportunity and then, wait, you're saying contractors can come bid for that as well, and that's best for your business, then you can do that? Right?
Yes. Yes.
If
yes.
like the reason you got the contractor isn't because you know their whole immigration backstory, it's because they are the best person for the job.
Right. That's
All
absolutely right. And there are a series of questions here that I can go through them individually, but I will encourage folks, right? Like, even if I do free 15-minute discovery calls for folks. Of course, if you need a longer consultation, I do 1-hour business strategy calls. Those are a little pricey. And I tell people this as, según yo, no, a little pricey. It ranges from state to state. And so I just openly state that with people. For a 1-hour business strategy consultation, I charge $350, but you're going to leave with resources, with answers, with templates, with all of that. Like, people don't come to me and get nothing. You'll get links to resources and everything, even if you don't hire me. But if you want to do a quick 15-minute consultation as a follow-up to the answers to this, please feel free to do so. My firm's number is 505-585-3782. And then I have a little link where you can do your little 15-minute call booking. So really quickly, would child care be considered a high liability business? Yes. If you're dealing with my child, I want to make sure that my child is protected. High liability. Another question that often gets asked along this type of business is group homes, nursing homes, or in-home care for the older population. Yes, high liability business. Cleaning services for houses. If you're doing cleaning services for really rich people and there's potential to mess up their floor, high liability. If you're just like, I have a lot of friends. We have like one cleaning lady that we've been using for years. Y entre los doctores y los abogados, we refer her. Low liability. I even advised her, hey, you don't need to open up an LLC. It's only us, and we're not going to sue you, right? So it depends. Who is your client? That depends on whether it's high liability, low liability. Buying liability insurance can be used as a contractor expense. Absolutely. It's a business expense, whether you're a sole proprietor, an LLC, a C Corp, an S Corp, whatever. Would sole proprietorship be a better option for handmade business? Ooh, that's a very open-ended question. I don't know what a handmade business is. So if you can put a little bit more information about that, I can answer it. If you're talking about like handmade products, como productos artesanales, not high liability.
Yep. All right. The rest is just thank yous and yep. Okay, so I know we ran over time. So how are you feeling?
Good. No, I'm feeling good, y'all. No, a mí me tienen que callar, okay? Once you got to tell me, ya, córtale.
Yeah. Emily did come back and she said like handmade earrings. So yeah, like
low liability.
Low liability. I guess it depends who your client is.
Yes. That's the other thing I was going to say. It depends on your client, because let me tell you, I have really sensitive ears, and if my ear starts rotting, I am going to sue the company, right? Like, this is a hypothetical. It's a hypothetical. Yes. Not me, I will sue you, but the client might consider suing the company who provided earrings that they consider low quality. It's super expensive to sue people, but you, as an attorney, want to think worst case scenario to appropriately advise your client. But generally, low liability.
Yep. I know we had, okay, so I know we're over time, but I saw this question that got submitted when somebody signed up. And so it says, how can we help recent high school graduates who are unfortunately not able to benefit from DACA? How can we keep encouraging them to continue to pursue their academic and career goals? That's a very fucking real question for our community, you guys.
Yes. And then there's a follow-up to that. I think it says, what can we study in a university that we can use later, like a contractor? Is nursing possible?
Y'all, nursing is one of the big things I get. So like, oh my gosh, so glad that you brought this up, because like I have a nursing video and like that shit popped off and people are like, so how do we do it? And I was like, So I'm glad we have Jazmin right here and I guess it also depends on your state. Oh my gosh, we're going to talk about the licensing and stuff. Okay,
yes.
go.
I'll end on that note because
Yes.
unless you are specifically in this situation, there's a lot of advocacy that needs to happen. All right. So here's a short answer for folks who you want them to continue in education. I will say, I think education is great for folks who want to continue doing that. I'm a firm believer that you don't need to be a lawyer or a doctor or a nurse or an educator to be worthy of dignity in this life. I could be selling burgers at McDonald's and I deserve dignity. But for folks who want to pursue higher education, oftentimes, there has already been advocacy done in those states. And I will say there are about 16 to 20 states in the country that allow you in-state tuition and allow you access to scholarships and in-state grants, regardless of immigration status. California has been leading this cause for years. New Mexico followed in 2005 and then in 2020. But there are other states like Maribel, I had some of your followers messaging me and I started sharing statutes with them and how to advocate for themselves with licensing regulations. So that goes to the next question that was asked by Daniela, right? Who can become a contractor? Anyone can be a contractor. It can be a little bit difficult for folks who are in nursing and who are doctors, but you can be a contractor. You can own, for example, my family, we had a nursing agency and we hired, we called it a healthcare agency because we hired doctors, physician assistants, certified nursing assistants, nursing RNs, LPNs, LVNs. Like we hired across the board and we had the contracts with national contractors and we would send our workers, right? Like you could do that with your nursing degree and you're as the operator of the business going and doing that contract. Boom, contractor. Yes, you could be a lawyer, and do that. So it's not restricted to these areas where people are like, oh, I got to sell a good. You can sell services. And these include professional and occupational services. So I just encourage people to really think outside the box and apply a lot of this to their own areas. If you are in California, I know a lot of you are joining from California. Just know that the state of California allows folks to access higher education regardless of immigration status. California is one of the states that New Mexico has been working with so that we can pass more progressive laws here in the state of New Mexico, which we did. And I love talking about this because in 2020, I was the legal expert for passing that law in New Mexico and removed immigration status as a barrier to professional occupational licensing. I am now working with Hawaii on how they can do that with their licensing agencies. If you're in a state that hasn't done this yet, I share those resources. I send you memos, I send you research, I send you what are the things that other states are doing that you can try to implement in your own state. So feel free to reach out to me about that as well.
I love it. Porque a veces they come to me with these questions and I'm like, that's outside my, I know you can make money, but literally, how to, especially when we get to the contracting phase, how do you go about that? I'm just like, it depends on your state. It depends on what, you might have to move state to get that to happen. Right. And I love that there's a lot of people interested in being nurses and lawyers. And they're like, I can be an accountant. What? Yeah, you don't need to, take on low paying jobs. Yeah, you can become un profesional, como dicen. And even if you're undocumented, you can financially exist in the United States irrelevant of your immigration status. And I love that for our community. I love that for our gente. So if you're we're coming to the end of this, so tell us what's one thing that you guys learned from today. I love knowing what your guys' takeaways are. So we have a comment here from Nadia that says, I learned about creating an LLC and paying yourself. Hells yeah. Again, you can financially exist. It doesn't matter what your immigration status is. And I think that is so fucking powerful for our community to know after years and years of rhetoric of, if you don't have a social security number, you can't legally work. If you don't have a work permit, you shouldn't be working. How do we even get here? Excuse me. Here's my contracting EIN. Don't ask questions that you don't need answers to.
Right. And I will share that it is unlawful for them to ask you about your immigration status for a contracting position. Unless they're the federal government or they're paying that contractor from federal grant funds, there's no reason for them to be asking you for immigration status. That is unlawful.
Yep. Oftentimes, so let me see. To the education questions, oftentimes the student has to educate those in positions of authority about what is possible. Yes. So again, where I call everybody in my community fucking trailblazers, because sometimes, you know, those people haven't gone through that situation. So they don't have the need to look for this information. So it's just about, you know, greater education. And sometimes it takes someone from our community to come out and say, oh, hey, I understand you don't know about this, but I'm asking a question. So let me provide you some educational stuff to like get you up to the point where I'm at. So maybe you can help me answer that question. Okay.
Right.
Let's see. What else did you guys learn? W-9, 1099, and contracting. Very encouraging. Yes, girl, get it. Cindy said, I learned I can put my parents on as my board of directors. They'd love that.
That's absolutely true. I have my wife on my board of directors. It can happen.
Yeah.
Do it.
Just, you know, again, just make sure that, you know, whatever, I forget what the saying is of like working with family. Just know that if you're putting them as the board of the directors, they are the board of directors. So no malo hagan just to subsidize a meal every month.
Yeah.
All right. Like that shit
100%.
comes with true consequences. So be ready for that.
Yeah. Yeah, this is absolutely true. Have a really strong operating agreement. And if they're going to be on your board of directors, they have to have a purpose.
Cindy says, only my parents. Only my parents. And then Luz over on IG Live said, language is key. Hells yeah. The whole, we don't say we're hiring contractors. We say we are engaging contractors. Love that.
100%.
Whew, all right. This was, I loved it. This was long but informational. I love it. I love it. I love it. Jazmin, any last comments, questions? Well, how can people get in touch with you? I know you had it up here somewhere.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always encourage folks to give me a call. I have community friendly hours for that purpose. I open my firm from 12 to 7 every day except Tuesday and Thursday I'm closed. So Saturdays and Sundays, I'm working 12 to 7 for my clients, and of course during the week as well, except for Tuesday and Thursday. Feel free to give me a call. The firm number is 505-585-3782. You can also text to that number. You can email me. My email is jasmin@undoculawyer.com. I'm really bad at Instagram DMs, y'all. So I really encourage you, call the firm or send me an email. And I think that goes for most lawyers. We're pretty bad at our social media because we're not in this business for social media purposes.
Yup. And if you want to follow Our Wealth Matters, I'm over on Instagram is where I spend the majority of my time. I do have a TikTok and a YouTube, but like Instagram's the one that's getting my main attention. And if you guys haven't done so, go collect your freebie over on my website, www.ourwealthmatters.com/freebie. And that also puts you on the mailing list. So when we do have events, so, you know, in the past I have IG lives and some people are like, we missed it because we're not on that platform, or like, you know, can you make a calendar so that we just all know where you're at? So this time, anybody who's ever gotten that freebie, I just did a email blast and I was like, hey, at least you know. I know que no digan que no los invité. So yeah, get that freebie. That way you can get on that mailing list. And that way any future things that I do like this, I'm going to be more cognizant of sending out an email, letting you guys know, hey, this is happening. Be ready. Let's go. It might be a little last minute, but that's just how I roll.
Yeah, and I really encourage you all to follow up with Maribel, because when we're engaging a business, like I have so many people who come to me and they're like, oh, I've been doing this for the last 25 years and I don't have a way to retire. The sooner you start, the better. You know, the biggest mantra that we talk about in finance and retirement is small numbers accrue to bigger numbers, right? And as the numbers become bigger, bigger numbers accrue to bigger numbers. So please don't forget about the passive income piece, about the retirement piece. You know, 401ks and Roth IRAs are available regardless of status. And I think that's one thing that I wish more of our community were talking about. We need that. Yes, talk to the lawyer about your immigration stuff and your business stuff and your tax stuff, and talk to the right financial coaches or advisors about your retirement.
Yes. And I'm just going to put the link really quick to the freebie. And I think that's going to be, I was going to mention something else, pero se me olvidó, se me fue. We hope you guys learned and took something away from this. Oh, right. So the replay will be coming out. Fingers crossed. I'm using a new platform. So fingers crossed that everything works out well. And we do get a a replay to post. And so I'll be sending that link out. Share it with your friends, your parents. And yeah, have a great day. Thank you, everyone who joined us, everyone who engaged in the comments. Fucking loved the great ass engagement and loved your comments and your questions. Thank you so much. All right. Bye, everyone.